Hello, my beautiful friends. I am Laurel Bleadon-Maffei with Illuminating Souls, welcoming you to this episode of Sleepy Bedtime Blessings, a podcast designed to help you rest, relax, and fall asleep, all while deepening in your connection with your beautiful team of angels who love you so. If we're meeting for the first time, I'm an angelic practitioner, a spiritual teacher, and an encourager of souls. And I offer one-on-one angel sessions, soul mentoring, and a variety of classes designed to inspire your spirit. And you can learn more at my website, illuminatingSouls.com, where you can also sign up for my mailing list. So at the top of my homepage, you can sign up for my general list and you will get all of my announcements and newsletters. I say that as if I do newsletters. I really don't. I aspire to. So one day you might receive a newsletter from me. And further down on the page, you can sign up for my daily inspiration email blast, and I will send you an inspiring email every weekday. I also post regularly over on Facebook, so there are lots of ways that we can connect. But for now, the angels and I are here to create a cozy, sweet, sacred space where you can replenish, restore, and drift off to sleep if that is your intention. And just to acknowledge that even though this is designed to be a sleep podcast, I know many of you listen during your waking hours. So if I'm keeping you company as you go about your day, it is a blessing to be here with you as well as all of you who are planning on drifting off to sleep. So here we are. As I record this, it is a Monday morning. And I woke up this morning already feeling a little bit tired. Not in a deeply fatigued way, just as if this feels like a good time for resting. And the sky's a bit overcast, and it's just one of those really cozy mornings. And so I thought I would share that with you because this is the energy from which I am creating this podcast, and the birds are chirping outside, and it seems as if things are still. I don't see any of the leaves blowing on the trees, and so it feels like it is a good time for stillness. I think sometimes we judge stillness as inertia, as one of my teachers says. That sometimes being in the quiet, just sitting or watching television, just hanging out. I don't know that all of us have a really great relationship with that because often our minds tell us we should be doing something else. But in this moment, I invite you, if you feel so guided and life is giving you the spaciousness to just be, that just being you in this breath and the next breath is enough. Whenever I teach my classes and co-creation, one of the things the angels are always reminding us about is that creation energy is always working, even when it feels like we're not. So, if you're napping, it doesn't mean that molecules of creation are not still working in your favor. I was using Midjourney the other day, which is, if you don't know about it, it is an AI art creation platform. And I have a new class I am creating that involves the word miracles. At this point, I think it's called Co-Creating Miracles. And Midjourney is not really great at writing text yet. It's still learning. And so you can give it a prompt asking it to write text, and it's really a crapshoot of what you're going to receive. And the other day, it wrote the word miracling with all of these happy flowers. Miracling. It turned miracle into a verb. And I was so delighted. I'm like, that is the best word ever. How is this not already a word? Right? Like, don't bother me. I'm miracling. I'm busy. So almost imagine a meme with, someone taking a nap, saying it may look like I'm not doing anything, but I'm miracling. And so, I don't know, that delighted me. And I thought I would share that with you in case it delights you too, because strands of creation energy continue to work in our favor. We do not always have to be physically present or consciously focused, because creation takes place. I'm sorry, it sounds like someone's drag racing down the freeway. Sorry, I'll keep going though. So co-creation, it takes place multidimensionally. I mean, think about if you've ever, I'm sure you have because you're an adult, all those times you've ever tried applying for jobs, right? You're manifesting, you're applying, your LinkedIn is updated, your CV looks fantastic. So you are doing your part. And all the parts you don't have power over are the companies you're applying to. How are they handling the resumes or the CVs? And what does their interview process look like? And what if another project all of a sudden takes priority? That there are all of these things behind the scenes that are in motion. That some perhaps you have influence over, some you don't. But this concept of co-creation, or miracling, as I will call it, is that things are working out in your favor. That even if you do not have awareness of what is moving in your favor, that life is moving in your favor. It's a beautiful way to hold in consciousness. And that's one of the things that we can choose into, that our consciousness is within our influence. Maybe not entirely within our control, but we absolutely wield influence within our own consciousness. So one of the things that I try to lean into, I'm not always successful, is this idea that life is working out in my favor. And when I feel overwhelmed, or when I can't see the forest for the trees, or whatever that metaphor is, I try to sit up a little bit straighter and remind myself that I am a beloved of this universe and things are working in my favor. Like somewhere behind the scenes, things are being lined up for me. And listen, I'm not saying that because I know it to be true. Perhaps it's partially a prayer. It's something that lifts my spirits in the moment. And it helps me move through an experience. Because we're ever evolving beings, and even when life is challenging, there's the greater part of us that is helping us navigate whatever it is that has presented to us. And the angels are helping as well. So here's to calling in all of the support, seen and unseen, known and unknown, that goodness will find you today, and that things are happening in your favor. And together we're going to be miracling our way into sunshine and rainbows and brighter tomorrows. So that's a pretty good ramble for a Monday morning when I felt kind of tired. Go Angels! this is one of those times it's so nice to be a channel and a spiritual teacher, because it's like, just wind me up like one of those old toys. Wind me up and I go. I don't know where we're going to go, but we're going to go. And I don't know if it's coming through on the recording, but there's some bird song happening in the background. And probably now that I've said it, they're not going to sing anymore. Oh, there they are. I don't know if you'll be able to hear them. I'll be quiet for a second. And of course, when I'm quiet, they don't sing. Just imagine then. Just imagine there are birds singing in the background. You have a good imagination. You can do that. I give you permission. So as I said, this is a sleep podcast designed because I love sleep podcasts. I listen to one every night when I am drifting off to sleep. And I find it to be such a helpful way to bridge the space between my waking life and my sleep. And so when I was guided to create this podcast, I knew I wanted it to be a sleep podcast, and it would involve angels, because that's what I do. And so here we have this unlikely mashup of two of my favorite forms of self-care, the angels and a sleep podcast. If you're wondering what I'm listening to right now as a listener, I am listening to The Sleepy Bookshelf, which I've shared with you before that I love. The host or the narrator, Elizabeth Grace, has a beautiful voice. And she's presently reading the book Villette by Charlotte Bronte. And I have no idea what the book is about. I mean, I kind of do because I'm into the second episode, but I've never read the book before or know what it's about. And if I try to tell you what it's about, I will do it very poorly, so I won't. But it does involve a young girl who is spending time with her aunt, and another little girl comes into the house, and I don't know. I made it through the first episode, and I started the second one. And I fall asleep within about 10 minutes, so I'm listening in 10-minute increments, even though I set my timer for 45 minutes. So I've been listening to that. And happily, I will say I've been unsuccessfully listening to it because I'm not hearing it because I go to sleep, which is the whole purpose of a sleep podcast. Which I have to say, as a creator of this content, it's awesome because the bar doesn't have to be too high. You know, some people who make podcasts put a lot of work into each episode. There's one podcast called The History of English. Before there were a lot of sleep podcasts, the one that I listened to was Sleep With Me by Drew Ackerman. And so in his Facebook group, people sometimes would give other suggestions, like what else can you listen to if you've listened to all the Sleep With Me episodes, and someone recommended The History of English because it's interesting and also it's easy to go to sleep to. Well, let me tell you, it is a fascinating podcast. I had no idea about the evolution of the English language. And this gentleman, I don't remember his name, he puts so much work into each episode. He only publishes, I don't know, every other month, if even that. And I can understand why, because it's so dense in a wonderful way. He gives you so much information. And did you know, if we were to time travel back to the time of the first Queen Elizabeth, like the 1500s, was she the queen in 1500s? Whenever that was. Forget the Queen Elizabeth reference because I don't know when she reigned. But if we were going to the 1500s, we would likely not understand English because it was pronounced so differently. And certainly if you were there in the 1200s, you would not understand English. Even though it was English, it didn't sound like English today. It's fascinating when he speaks English and the way it would have been pronounced when he reads from Chaucer. It's fascinating. So, okay, we're already rambling, and I haven't yet brought the angels in. They're here. here already, but let me share them with you. So, my sweet one, just take a nice deep breath in, breathing in the love of God, the love of the universe that is here with you. And we'll just take a breath to release as well. Just releasing whatever came before this moment. And beautiful angels on high, I am so grateful that you are joining us here. And I ask that you infuse this broadcast with waves of love and goodness and light and beauty in service to each of our beloveds listening to this message. And angels, I ask that you lift each one of us up in ways that are meaningful, helping us see with clarity and goodness and inspiration, helping us to cultivate positive, wonderful shifts in our lives. And dear ones, just take another breath in, allowing the angels to bring their love to you now. I often imagine this as the room filling with a beautiful, soft pink light that is filled with love that has been cultivated specifically for you. That your angels know what is transpiring with you and with those you love. And your prayers are heard and received and amplified. So just take a breath in and out, and whatever prayers or intentions, requests that you wish to bring to the angels and to God, just bring this into your heart now. Where would you like this light to travel? Just bring your loved ones into your heart. Bring the situations you or they are experiencing. And allow this love to ripple. You know, our prayers have energy. They really do. It's like we are the physical emissaries of divine light. And prayers are intangible, right? We don't necessarily have a spreadsheet that gives us cause and effect. But I know for me, I am always so deeply, deeply touched when someone lets me know they're praying for me. It's like someone is broadcasting prayerful, loving, divine energy and consciousness for me. And so I am praying with you and for you right now. And you can pray for yourself. You can pray for others. We're just gathered together right now. Wherever two or more are gathered in the name of God, miracles happen. So together we're miracling. I'm sorry, I'm going to overuse that word for a few days. And then it will probably abate a little bit. So I also send you delight. Delight, I think, is going to be one of my words for this year. Because when I focus on delight, my heart lifts up. So I send you prayers of delight. May you experience things today and this week and this month and this year that delight your heart and spirit. So another breath in, and again, if sleep is your intention, if you haven't already done so, cozy on up and snuggle on in. I love snuggling in at the end of the day. Last night it was chilly here, and I have lots of blankets on the bed and pillows, and it was delectable to crawl in bed at the end of the day. So I hope you're in a place where your bedtime is cozy and it nurtures you. And if you're ready to drift off, go ahead whenever you want to, and we're going to move on into story time. And if you're staying awake, we're still moving into story time, and I hope that you enjoy what I've got prepared for you. So I do lots of different kinds of episodes here. I do ones where I share with you stories from my life, We flip through old cookbooks, old TV guides. I read to you from things that are in the public domain. And one of the ones that I really enjoy making and listening to as a listener are when I go back through old magazines. And one in particular that I love is Country Life in America. So this is, let's see, November 1916. So one of the things that I always find so fascinating about these magazines is they're talking about the past, but when it was current events, right? So we know what happens. But it's so interesting to me to look back at what life was like, what consciousness was like, how much things cost. And so I've done these before, and this is an issue I haven't flipped through before, so we're going to do it together. So this is the 15th anniversary of Country Life in America, and it's from November 1916. It's pulled from Google Books, and it was, I think, 6 months of issues that were ultimately released together as a book. That was very common back then. So we start off with an ad for a car that I've never heard of before. It's the Roush and Lang Electric. So they're not talking about electric cars like we talk about them now. They're talking about gasoline-powered cars that were considered electric back then versus the horse and carriage. So it says millions own automobiles, but only the few may enjoy the luxury of a Roush and Lang Electric. It is a standard of prestige, the social necessity, recognized universally. No other car approaches its utility, beauty, and perfect performance under all conditions. Lovely car. And this is the inside page. It says a magazine for the homemaker in the country. And just so you know, what they are talking about in terms of the country is likely not what we would think of as rural America today. So, for instance, Long Island was considered the country. So often near urban areas, there would be more rural areas where people would go. They would have homes, they would have little farms and orchards. And it's interesting because one of the magazines that Wes's mom always sends him is Country Magazine, the new one. And I love it. And it is really more based in rural America than this is. This is, to me, more extended suburbs, but they were perceived as rural back then. For instance, we're in the real estate section now, which is my favorite part of these. I am fascinated by these homes. So this is Southern Colonial Home at Flushing, Long Island. Okay, Flushing, Long Island is not country anymore. So, and back then it was country-ish, maybe suburbs, we would think of it. New York's most attractive residential section fronts on Kissena Lake Park, the gem of the city's park system. Garage with servants' quarters, grounds beautifully planted, 4 baths, 2 sleeping porches, large billiard and game room, furnished throughout in a mahogany and white, 15 minutes away from Penn Station. So, back then, the wealthy, if you're watching the Gilded Age, the wealthy who lived in Manhattan would have these country homes. They were grand. They were beautifully manicured, and they had servants. And they were exclusive. So me as a Jewish woman would likely not be welcomed into many of these neighborhoods, but it's okay because I'm not really going. Okay, one of the most attractive houses in Kensington Great Neck can be bought at a bargain by a quick buyer. Purchaser secures absolutely without cost a part ownership in a 10-acre waterfront park containing a swimming pool, bathhouse, bathing beach, a dock for yachts, because we need a dock for yachts and motorboats, and tennis courts, costing over $100,000. Sure, why not? Ooh, see, now this is where I get mad. Carefully restricted plots at Quogue, Quogue, West Hampton Beach, New York. And that means I would not be welcome. So, glad it's a different time. So Westchester County they're selling in, and if you listen to my episode about Tarrytown, you'll know I have spent time there. Okay, here's another one for sale. A Long Island estate, because if we're going to get something, let's get an estate at Hewlett Bay Park, Hewlett, Long Island, 16 miles from New York City. A complete and imposing country residence. You want an imposing country residence for sure. Convenient to station, 30 minutes by train to Pennsylvania Terminal, 35 by motor, 9.5 acres, plenty of room, including rose gardens, vegetable gardens, and well-developed trees and shrubbery. And just so you know, no one expects you to take care of that. You will have gardeners for sure. Nine master's bedrooms, 5 baths. Stable accommodates 4 horses, garage for 5 cars. Ladder has 7 rooms and 2 baths for coachmen's and chauffeurs' families. Photographs will be shown and further information given by agent. Doesn't tell us how much it's going to cost. But I'm sure if we could bring our 2024 funds back to 1916, we could afford it. But, I think the downside of having an estate like this with 9 master's bedrooms is people would have an expectation to stay with you. Stay with me, perhaps I should talk about myself. And I don't know that would be fun. I'm sort of reaching the time in my life where I'm not peopling very much. Okay, here's one. For sale, beautiful Hudson River shorefront estate of 25 acres. One of the old historic showplaces of this favored section. It overlooks the widest part of the Hudson at Tarrytown, New York. I lived there. Not in this house, clearly. Riparian rights and dock landing for yachts, over 2 miles of private driveway, main entrance on Broadway, 18-room modern colonial house with spacious veranda on all 4 sides. House has plenty of storage space, ample closet room, equipped with modern improvements, hot water heat, and 2 water systems, including spring water from reservoir 125 feet in diameter and 7 feet deep on property. A 3-story gardener's cottage, garage, stable, numerous summer houses and fountains. Fine apple, pear, and cherry orchards, excellent vegetable garden, grounds lighted by electricity. No expense has been spared in laying out the grounds, and the trees are the finest in Westchester County. Less than 1 hour from 59th Street by motor. Trains almost every hour via Hudson River Division, New York Central. Among the neighboring estates are those of Henry Graves, Mrs. Finley Shepherd, John F. Daniel, Russell Hopkins, A.D. Irving. I know none of these people, but if we traveled in these circles back then, we would likely know them. So it's interesting. A few of these estates still exist, and many of them have become historic centers. And, back in the day, staying in Manhattan in the summer was unbearable because it would be so hot and you had so many people crowded together. So the wealthy would have these country homes. And typically the men, because the men were working, would go into the city for work, and then the families would be in these homes during the summer, and the men would sort of come out on the weekends. I say this as if I know that that's what happened. I've watched The Gilded Age, so I understand how this works now. But that's my recollection. So a few of these, at least one of these homes, I know I toured. I think it was Lyndhurst in Tarrytown. So that must have been really beautiful. Okay, let's see what else we could buy. So this is Oh, Riverdale and Hudson, again in Westchester County. Healthful surroundings. See, again, they're talking about the health because in Manhattan, especially in the summer, there would be outbreaks of disease. And so you really wanted to get into the country where the air was clearer. So these important factors of a home site and other attractions such as picturesque woodlands and real accessibility to the city may be found at Fieldston. So it has recently been restricted to a high-class residential section by the city of New York. Again, I wouldn't be allowed to buy there. Ay. Okay, that's okay though, because I don't live then. I live now. So good news. Okay, so this one is in Katona, New York, in the Westchester Hills on Main State Road to Berkshires, 40 miles from New York. Half a mile from the station, a country estate, 160 acres. Beautiful new stone house and barn, all modern improvements. One of the highest points in Westchester County. Wonderful view of lake and hills. Sounds lovely. I would live there. Sure, why not? Okay, let's see what else we can find. All right, this is 8 rooms, 2 baths, and laundry. 2 baths doesn't sound like enough. A home of unusual charm located in unique and delightful, they're using one of my favorite words, it's a delightful community of the Sage Foundation Homes Company at Forest Hill, Long Island. Oh, this looks like a massive home. Okay, here's another one. This one is the one that looks massive. Sorry, I was skimming ahead. For sale or to rent for a term of years. Ideal country place on Long Island. Nearly 600 acres. Plenty of room. Affording unusual opportunities for the enjoyment of outdoor life. 4 miles from Islip Polo Club, because you need good access to your polo club if you're traveling in these circles. 3 miles from South Shore Country Club. Again, important. 1 hour out by train. Beautiful grounds surround house, which is approached by an avenue of trees 1 mile long. Private lakes for fishing, hunting preserve. A house of 10 bedrooms, 5 baths, billiard room, parquet floors, electric light, hot water heat, etc. Bowling alleys, concrete garage, large stable, box stall barn, various outbuildings, and several cottages. And you're part of the Kewanee water system. A unique opportunity for the country gentleman. Okay, 600 acres and a mile-long avenue of trees. It must have really been spectacular. But let's see what's available in Connecticut, because Connecticut is also an option. Here is a colonial residence at Greenwich, Connecticut, for sale or rent, so your choice. A colonial estate of 20 acres with beautiful grounds, a residence located on a ridge about 500 feet from the roadside, in a choice residential section of Greenwich, near the country club, large shade trees, shrubbery, a flower garden, terraces and tennis courts, garage with a living apartment above. The residence of colonial architecture consists of 24 rooms. Big enough for you? 9 tile bathrooms. Offered for sale, or the owner would consider to lease unfurnished for a term of years. Interior completed with carpets and rugs which will remain if desired. Unusual offering for an estate of this kind. 9 bathrooms. You would need a lot of servants. I don't think I would enjoy having full-time servants like that. I really like my privacy. And you know I'm not cleaning that house, right? No, I'm not cleaning 9 bathrooms. So I would have to have servants, who I would not call servants because I hate that word. I would have a housekeeping staff and I would treat them incredibly well and pay them fairly and give them benefits. If I'm that wealthy, that's how I would do it. So let's see, there is an old-fashioned remodeled farmhouse an all-year home in University Heights. Maybe you want a dairy farm. It's a 250-acre dairy farm, and you could rescue all those cows. Because if you're that wealthy enough, this could be a cow sanctuary. Okay, I'm getting a little preachy here, huh? Okay, I'll dial back a little bit. Okay, there's another farm for sale, a beautiful country home and practical farm, 125 acres, specializing in peaches. Oh my God, how yummy would that be? 400 feet elevation. See it at work to appreciate what it is. Okay, a peach farm, that would work. Make a lot of pie, huh? So, lots of stuff in Connecticut. Let's see what else I can find. Ooh, let's skip to California. I love these in California. Let's see what we can do. A 10-acre home. It's a country home in the city with an income. When you think of California, you think of fruits and flowers, sunshine, and happy days. They're not talking about the TV show because it's 1916. Ideals realized in supreme contentment. To be a gentleman farmer in the city is a dream worth waiting for. California is the best place in the world to realize your ambition. I have an orange grove with the choicest bearing trees that are producing a handsome income. The place is offered for sale, not a bargain, but a real value, and the best description written upon paper would not do it justice. The one best way is to see the property. And the person selling this is Earl Sandusky, and I don't believe the address given is the address of the farm because it's on Grand Avenue in Los Angeles, and that is downtown Los Angeles. There's another ad where they are selling lots in Point Loma in San Diego. So it says Loma Portal, Loma Park, and Point Loma Villas furnish the very acme of home sites in this wonderful region. These subdivisions offer an endless variety in size, small enough for house, lawn, and flowers, or large enough for a gentleman's estate measured in acres. The lure of all the year out-of-door life in its most attractive forms is sure, within the next 5 years, to bring to Point Loma more home seekers than can be accommodated on its limited area. Yep, that certainly happened. Here's another one, the home sweet home of your dreams. Ideal foothill home, 8 miles from Los Angeles, paved automobile roads and 15-minute car service, 3 acres and oranges and miscellaneous fruits, new Swiss chalet of 8 large rooms, grand sleeping porch, furnace, hot water, gas, electric lights, and all city conveniences, large garage with servants' quarters, the combination of superb location, grand panoramic view, ideal climate, mountain water, pure air, and real home comforts cannot be duplicated anywhere. It doesn't say where it is, but it looks beautiful. So lots of farms. Now we're moving on to Colorado and Florida. Let's see, Maryland, if you want to farm in Maryland, 2 miles waterfront, splendid concrete roads to Baltimore, Washington, Philadelphia, and other points in the entire distance, 1.5 miles to Goodtown with 26 daily trains stopping, brick residence in what is practically a wooded park of great natural beauty, excellent farm buildings, fine duck and other shooting, which we would not do, picturesque place of great capabilities. Take let's say quick sale, important, take $20,000. Oh, if we could only bring our today money there. Located in lovely region, both socially and agriculturally. All right, should we head on over to Virginia and see what we can buy there? So this is called Mountain View in Albemarle County, Virginia. I'm sorry if I didn't say that right. A noted residential section, social, climatic, and scenic conditions unsurpassed. 800 acres of fertile land, many streams, 25 springs. That's a lot. Boundary of beautiful timber, new colonial-type dwelling with modern equipment, building site indeed magnificent, outbuildings are first class. Station on place. What is that? Am I reading this right? Let's see. Station on place, it says. I don't know what that means. Property selected by a cultured man of discriminating judgment after thorough investigation. Owing to business engagements, he offers Mountain View for sale at $40,000. That's it, 40 grand. You can get a 466-acre farm in excellent condition. 4 miles from Marshall, a 12-room dwelling and 3 tenant houses as well for $50,000. And let's see what else we have. Okay, now we're kind of coming into the architects section where they're trying to sell product. I don't know why I thought this one was interesting. Pecky cypress used as interior trim, one of the most artistic of America's great estates. And it looks like Pecky cypress is logs, like it looks like loggy. Is that a word? Looks like it's logs. You naturally ask, what is Pecky cypress? That's just what I was thinking. Well, it's the innermost heart of the older trees, many of them as old as the Crusades, and probably all of them antedating Columbus. So what does man think? Man thinks, let's chop these things down. They're as old as the Crusades. Why should they grow any older? Oh my God, this makes me nuts. Okay. Ay, ay, ay. Pecky cypress is the part of the cypress tree which has been attacked by the rot germs and has been repelled and destroyed them. Volume 2 of the famous Cypress Pocket Library contains photographs by eminent scientists showing exactly how the destructive decay agencies literally died on the job instead of multiplying as they do in most woods. It's an absorbing and wonderful demonstration of the eternal quality of the cypress, and the pecky part itself is the greatest buy in the whole world of lumber. So basically, these trees are older than Columbus. They repelled these pests and lived through it until the greatest pest of all came along, man, and said, this would be great in my house, let me chop it down. Oh my God. All right, sorry, that isn't a very sleepy, happy thought. Okay, let's move on to something else. Let's move on, shall we? Okay, we now have the kennel directory where they're selling all kinds of breeds, Airedales, St. Bernards, Newfoundlands, Old English Sheepdog. They're calling Snow White Eskimo puppies, but it looks like a Samoyed. The smartest and cutest dogs on earth. Natural trick dogs and very comical, just the thing for children, affectionate, playful, and harmless as a kitten, always full of pep. Okay, if this is a Samoyed, the other thing they should tell you, they are the most stubborn breed. They're so stubborn. I grew up with Samoyeds. My family had 3 of them, and then I adopted Tessa, and Tessa was a Samoyed as well. And I remember at one point I had to travel, and so I had to kennel her, and I felt so bad about kenneling her that I paid for her to get training. I was like, well, at least I'll take her out of the kennel and do stuff with her. And so when I went to pick her up, they showed me that she had learned to sit on command. And if a dog could eye roll and look annoyed that they had to sit because someone told them to sit, that was Tessa's expression. She looked at me and like rolled her eyes and huffed, and she sat. So yeah, they're adorable. There's nothing cuter on earth than a Samoyed puppy. But they are stubborn and they shed. Never, ever, ever expect to live without dog hair again. Okay, Russian wolfhounds, ginormous dogs. Great Danes, ginormous. I love big dogs. And now I get to the smaller dogs. Oh, they have Chow Chows, Boston Terriers, Bulldogs, a white Scotch Collie. Oh, they look pretty. And then Highland White Terriers. We do have some cats. They have Persians. Yeah, so, back then, if you had money, you were buying a purebred something, right? And then, if you want to raise chickens or something, they also have those ads, but I'm going to skip through those. And then there is an ad for a Steinway. Well, not for a Steinway, for Steinway pianos. And it says to own a Steinway is to have limitless source of satisfying pleasure to be shared with your friends. It is a possession to be proud of, both as a flawless musical instrument and a piece of furniture of unexcelled beauty. The Steinway has set the world standard wherever pianos are known with a degree of perfection which has never been successfully imitated. The price of a Steinway is but little more than the cost of ordinary pianos. Send for illustrated literature and terms. And seeing that ad reminded me of a phenomenal documentary that is made about Steinways. It's called, I had to go look it up, Note by Note, The Making of Steinway L1037. It used to be on Netflix. It's not anymore. I think you can watch it on YouTube. It is fascinating. All the many craftspeople whose gifts go into making a Steinway. That these instruments are made with so much love and generations of shared memory, right? Like muscle memory, knowing how to do a very specific task that is needed to create these instruments. So if you get a chance to watch it or find it somewhere, it's called Note by Note, The Making of Steinway L1037, and that's the piano that is made throughout this documentary. It is brilliant and so inspiring. It's a reminder that there are things for which we need craftspeople. You know, that someone, a human being, has this gift to do this singular task, and they know how to do it. They've got the muscle memory. They've been doing it for years, and each of them brings their gift to the creation of this piano. So if you get a chance to watch it, it's wonderful. And then there is an ad for the Gorham Company. They do silver and gold. It says, in all branches of human endeavor and industry, in art and in letters, there are certain names which convey the idea of finality, outshining all others as the North Star outshines subsidiary planets. This is brilliant copywriting. Gorham is the name in silverware. And when you buy sterling silverware with the celebrated Gorham imprint on it, you have the satisfaction of knowing that you have purchased the finest silverware for the money that the world affords. For sale by leading jewelers everywhere. That's brilliant. I love to read copy when someone gives their whole heart and soul to it. So, the idea of finality outshining all others as the North Star outshines subsidiary planets. You go with your bad self, right? Ooh, I found an article that looks interesting. It looks pretty long. I don't know that we're going to get through it, but it's about Geneva, Illinois, which is near where I grew up. Not really close, probably an hour and a half away. It's called The Children's Isle, How Geneva, Illinois, a town of 3,000 souls, solved the playground problem. So, in a beautiful Illinois river, within an hour's ride of Chicago, so I was right about an hour away, stands the Children's Isle, this island kingdom, which is perhaps the only one of its kind in existence, has been dedicated to the boys and girls of Geneva. The people of this little town, for it only has about 3,000 inhabitants, believe that their children should have a playground all their own, a little kingdom to themselves, where they may carry on their games and sports without outside interference. And they believe, too, that this playground will do much to develop their sons and daughters into good men and women. It was with this end in view that the champion of the children's cause became one of the 3 members of the Park Commission of Geneva Township. After being legalized by the county court, this commission found itself facing a peculiar situation. It had no park, no money, and no land. In fact, it did not have any assets whatsoever. It existed, and that was all. For a long time, it not only lacked the active financial help of the community, but also its moral support. The wealthy landowners along the river, whose estates were the pride of the countryside, were frankly disgusted with the idea. A playground was a thing for a city, not for a beautiful country. A place to play. Didn't the children have a whole valley? Didn't the surrounding country fascinate the thousands of picnic parties that came out from the city every Sunday and holiday on the electric road? Subscribe to such a thing or vote in favor of it? Certainly not. Why deface the natural beauty of the valley with the cindered playgrounds, the product of factory and the tenement districts? Those arguments sounded logical, and at first thought it did seem very foolish to put a playground into the beautiful scenery of the Fox River Valley. Magnificent grounds and gardens meet the eye at every turn, acres of flowers and rows upon rows of greenhouses. Certainly a playground would be sadly out of place there, but so are the children. There were too many tempting flowers that must not be picked, too many inviting boats that must not be clambered into, too many half-hidden rose-covered arbors not to be explored, and altogether too many keep-off-the-grass signs. But the owners could not do otherwise. A handful of children could demolish the results of the summer's work of the landscape artists and gardeners in no time. These were private grounds, and the owners were considerate to permit the public to enter at all. But such a privilege was not kindness to children, it was merely a tantalizing temptation. There were swimming pools in which they could not swim, ponds in which they could not wade, fish where they could not catch, and fruit that they must not pick. Certainly no one could ask or expect that the children be allowed to run wild over the costly grounds, yet where were the children to play? The wooded island, out in the middle of the river, right in the very heart of town, was clearly the answer. As it stood, it was inaccessible. The children could not reach it except in boats, and then they found it full of swamps and undergrowth. But the commissioners felt that it could be cleaned up and a bridge put over. It would solve their problem, so they went to work with that idea in mind. But as the city council was struggling with obstinate problems that it considered a great deal more vital than the establishment of a park and playground, the commissioners were compelled to shelve their plan. For 2 years, the champion of the children's right movement used his office as alderman to further other features of improvement for the town, and withheld his pet until conditions were ripe for its presentation. Ooh, this is getting really interesting, isn't it? Okay. But in the meantime, he and his brother park commissioners were not idle. They went before the commercial club and claimed the right to its support. They called its attention to the fact that the river cut the town in two, and that residents of the east side and the residents of the west side did not mingle freely, and that the children went to different schools and were not brought into common contact. In fact, the town represented a collective of individuals rather than a cooperative community. They argued that if a universal playground could be placed where it could be equally accessible to both factions, it would serve as a melting pot for the youngsters and promise a unified town for future generation. If it did not accomplish that in a very short time by bringing the elders together through the interest in their children, if catcher Oscar Swanson is receiving the offerings of pitcher Mike Kelly several times a week, it is difficult for the seniors Swanson and Kelly not to acquire at least a casual acquaintance. This sounded reasonable, but how was the commercial club to know that the children would go to the island to play? That was just the question which the commission was waiting for. If the commercial club would subscribe enough to throw a temporary footbridge across from the mainland to the island and pay the expenses incurred, the commission would give a picnic and play day to the children just to see how they would take it. The picnic proved a great success. It seemed that every child in the township had responded. There was no doubt that the children were anxious to have a place to play within reasonable distance of their homes. The commissioners had shrewdly figured that if they could show the poor people of the community where their children would have a chance to enjoy on the island advantages which they themselves had never known, this would win their support. If it was to be merely a beauty spot, a place for automobile parties to picnic, they would vote against it. But if it was really for their children, that was a different matter. A petition in favor of the commission's idea was circulated on the day of the picnic and was signed by practically every poor voter in the community who had children, and a goodly percentage of them were on the island that day. This brought the plan squarely before the city council and demanded their attention. But could the island be bought, provided the necessary money was secured? Frankly, the council did not think it was practical. But again, the commission was prepared. They had an option on the island, and it could be bought for $2,500. The commissioners had not nourished their idea for 3 years to let up now that they had caught the public's attention. They persistently besieged the council and citizens of their town, and though at first they received scant encouragement from the property owners of the valley, they were finally told to go ahead and get estimates as to the amount necessary to prepare it for park and playground purposes. The commission's findings were that with the practice of rigid economy, $15,000 would suffice to purchase the island, clear and level it, and equip it with necessary apparatus. Accordingly, it was slated for next election, when the necessary sum was voted for the purpose of acquiring the island and developing it into a park and playground. After purchasing the island, they had less than $13,000 with which to finish the work on the grounds, build the bridge and stairs, buy apparatus, dredge the river, and erect the field house. About this time, a new commissioner was elected whose experience, gained in the building of 2 beautiful homes, had given him a practical knowledge of landscape gardening. In fact, he had furnished the constructive power to build up one of America's most beautiful communities and had been instrumental in staging the Greek players there. The new commissioner called into consultation a famous landscape artist who had done considerable work for him and who was at that time in charge of an enormous park system in a large city. But the expert proved of no assistance, and after he had made a few visits to the little town, for which he charged what was no doubt a nominal fee for him, the commission was forced to give up the idea of his cooperation. The trouble with my friend, said the new commissioner, was that he was used to having his park commission say to him, "Here's a couple of $100,000. Go out and trim the hedges and cut the grass." He could not realize that we were actually limited to $15,000. He was firm in his conviction that if we spent all we had on a wading pool or something of that kind, the township would promptly vote us more, but we knew better. Deciding that they must depend upon themselves alone and lay out their park and playground without outside assistance, the commissioners ordered an engineering company to make a survey and topographic map of the island and to furnish estimates for a bridge and stairway. The stairway was to be of concrete and match the large arch bridge, which is the main thoroughfare of the little town, and connects the east and west sides. This stairway was to extend from the large arch bridge to the swampy land below, through which a road was to be built and a walk laid to the small island that was to span the river between the island and the swampland. Estimates on several styles of bridges and stairways were received by the commission. Okay, and this just keeps going on, you guys, so I am going to kind of end this here. But how fascinating is that? Maybe I'll come back to this article in another episode and maybe do a little Wikipedia search on what happened to this little island playground. But thank goodness for those people who have a vision and are resilient and can get things done. I mean, just think of all of those kids that had the pleasure of playing in this playground for as long as it existed. I don't know if it still exists. I'll have to do some research. So that, my beautiful ones, brings this episode to a close. And I'm so grateful for our time together. So thank you for listening and being here. And I look forward to connecting with you again soon. Thank you so much. You are truly a blessing in this world, and I am grateful for you.